Hi there folks, my name's Neverwin24 and welcome to another little Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft review. Is this a review? You know what, it's still going to be a review. Today we're going to be having a look at what I think is quite possibly up there with the Spitfire as one of the most beautiful aircraft ever created. We are having a look at the DeHavilland DH.88 Comet that's come to us from a freeware developer, Shepburr. Also known as TP Aeronautics. So this is a freeware release that I've recently become aware of, and I gave it a try because I was very skeptical initially because I'd seen a Comet previously released to the community here that was It was just a port over of the year old FS9 Comet. Actually, I think it was actually might even be predated that actually. No, it was the FS9 Comet that was brought over, and with mixed results. But this one, however, is a completely native, brand new production, just for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I thought I'd give it a try, and after giving it a try, I am absolutely sold on it. I am absolutely loving it too. So I want to share this aircraft with you and let you know about it because I think it is a fantastic piece of community freeware. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our regular aircraft review format. We're going to be having a look here at the external model. We're going to go through a cold and dark start, and then we're going to go through and do a test flight. Now, as we're going through the external model here, the model, it really captures the streamlined nature of this racing aircraft and captures it in such a beautiful way as well. You get textures for all three. So originally, the aircraft only ever had 5 aircraft produced, and the first 3 of those were produced purely, and the whole design actually was produced purely to be able to be entered into the great 1934 England to Australia McRobertson air race, which was an interesting one because UK sort of performance in the air racing circuit had started to fall behind with the evolution of these new all-metal aircraft that were emerging from the United States of America. So it was very much a matter of national prestige that de Havilland decided to produce these aircraft, and it was, in fact, it serves as a phenomenal story of design, with the fact that the aircraft went from from rapid development, from initial sort of plans to actually a flying prototype to actual entry into the race in only 6 weeks. It was just absolutely outstanding development cycle. So yeah, and the aircraft is just this incredible, beautiful, just streamlined vision. It really is. Now, what's interesting about this aircraft is that although it was competing against, it was essentially designed to compete directly against American sort of monoplane, sort of all-metal aircraft. What this aircraft is predominantly wood. It is predominantly a wooden aircraft and a wooden wonder and a wooden marvel, much like the later de Havilland Mosquito as well. So you could say in some ways that the Mosquito owes its origins to this very sleek racing aircraft. Now, as we've been going around here, as I said, we've been capturing the lines. As I said, like the lines of the aircraft are just absolutely beautiful, and the model has been done really, really well, capturing the fact that it's accurate with the tail skid. We've got lights both in the nose and the tail, and the Gypsy major engines that are actually in the nacelles here, all done with some beautiful detail. Now, there aren't any sort of removable cowlings, and the canopy doesn't open at this stage, but it's just, it looks the part, complete with the aircraft, the landing gear all done with their modeling and the texture quality and the use of PBR is done exquisitely well. So I have to say that the modeling and the visuals of this aircraft are done incredibly well. Now, the aircraft does come with 5 liveries included, including all 3 of the aircraft that actually participated in the McRobertson air race, including this one, Grosvenor House, which of course would go on to win the race in the main category of being the the flat out winner. It also potentially would have won the handicap class as well, except for the race rules stating that that you can only win one category. So obviously they took the overall race winner. So yeah, so the model perfect, looks amazing, looks absolutely perfect for me. So let's jump into the cockpit, because the cockpit is a bit more basic, but is definitely suitable to the period. Alright, so here we are in the office of the DeHavilland 88 Comet, and it's a very Spartan office. I mean, let's be honest here. This aircraft is designed as a long-range, high-speed racing aircraft, so it's designed for speed and efficiency, and that's it. So none of this mod con rubbish of autopilots or fancy electronic gauges here. Nothing like that. Now, technically speaking, the developer has chosen to include those systems, but they are not visualized. So if you want to use them, you do have to actually have you actually have to have those bound to certain keybind commands. So or you use them on one of like a pop-up of a GNS 530 or something, or GNS 750 on a pop-up. But if you want to, use your instruments like your radios, nav radios, and GPS and all that kind of fun stuff, you are going to have to go to other instruments because they are not modeled in the cockpit, which I am perfectly fine with, because as a vintage period aircraft, this is absolutely spot on. Now, as we go through the cockpit here, as I said, it is very Spartan. It's very basic. Now, the texturing is still pretty good. The developer has said that this is something that they want to improve and work on in this aircraft. And this aircraft is by no means finished, by the way, folks. This is very much still, the developer is committed to ongoing improvements, but the condition that it's in, I think it's pretty feature complete. Like as I said, we could do some improved cockpit textures and modeling a little bit, but overall, pretty damn good. As I said, yeah, very basic. So we are a twin engine aircraft, so you do have your twin engine gauges there. Very basic sort of instrumentation here for your artificial horizon. You have 3 fuel tanks in the aircraft. You've got rear, center, and nose. Be cautious if you've got fuel in the if you're of your center of gravity when you're filling your tanks, because too much weight in this nose of this aircraft, you will nose over. Just bear that in mind. Now, something else to notice as well is the compass settings. Now, the developers actually also included as a feature they've actually modeled the actual drift of the directional gyro compass. So you've got a naval sort of lubber line compass here, which is for you to be aware of, which allows you to recalibrate your directional gyro during flight, and if you will be needing to do that multiple times if you're doing long haul flying. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing that I want to point out as well, and you'll see it more here, is the landing gear. So the landing gear is there's no just manual switch. This is a wheel where you wind the gear up. Now, you can just simply hit your gear toggle, but the gear does not come up quickly, just so you're aware. All right, let's get ourselves started and get ourselves underway for getting our aircraft underway and into the skies. So a few controls here. So we've got our fuel cocks down on the bottom here. So they are on when when the long side is set to outboard. So we are good there. Now, there should be a click point. Now, the one click point that I had, this is your cross feed valve, the one click point that I had trouble finding was the parking brake, which I believe is supposed to be attached to here, but that's probably the one control that I've had a lot of trouble flying the click, because according to the manual, that should be the click point there, but yeah, that's the one issue I've got with that. But seriously, just use your keyboard keybind for that one and you are all fine. All right, so we've got through to center transfer. We'll need that for your longer distance flights. As I said, this aircraft has got incredible, phenomenal range, by the way. You can go all the way from Mildenhall to Karachi Mildenhall to Baghdad in this aircraft, like in one stop. So, you've got a lot of flying capabilities here. All right, in the meantime, as I said, let's get ourselves started here. Okay, so we're going to go battery on. Okay, navigation lights on. Okay, now we're going to set our mags to on for our engines. All good. Mixture full rich on both engines. fuel open, crossfeed open when pulled. Okay, it looks like we are set. Tail skid is unlocked. All right, now, and our starter for our first engine. There we go. Engine caught. Now our right engine. There we go. All pressure rising. We are good. There we go. Okay. Now our alternator on. So I don't believe this has a custom Gypsy sound set with this aircraft, but it still sounds reasonably good. It's a piston engine. Maybe we'll see a custom sound set come in the future, but so far, I mean, it still sounds like a piston aircraft, so I'll take it. Now let's see. Now, one of the things you can probably see is the fact that you can't see very well out of this aircraft, like at all. The forward vision is very restrictive, so taxiing a lot of tail draggers like this, it can be quite challenging. And of course, with the canopy closed the way it is even more challenging to be able to see out. So let's get our parking brake released. Okay. Now, they've modeled it quite well as well, so even with idle power, it will actually roll forward pretty much straight away, which is good. So let's taxi out. Now, as I said before, we pointed out that we've got a tail skid rather than a tail wheel. So a lot of your control is going to be given by, it does have directional capabilities, but a lot of your turning is going to be done by differential thrust. So bear that in mind when you are taxiing. And you do have to zigzag quite a bit. In fact, I'm not going to try and go by the fuel farm there. We're going to go taxiing out here, I think. Now, I'd highly recommend that while you're taxiing, pull back on the stick to try and minimize the chances of you nosing over. So now we're going to do some zigzag taxiing here over to the run-up area. Keeping mindful, and again, be very mindful on the brakes, because even with the rear and center tanks full as I have them right now, this aircraft will have a tendency to nose over. So you do have to be mindful of that while you are taxiing. This becomes even more important on landing as well. Okay, let's head to our run-up area. Alright, we'll stop here for our run-up. Okay, let's check our mags here. So, starting the engine. Okay, check our mags. So you do see it's a very subtle drop, but there is definitely a drop coming through on the mags there. Very, very subtle, but it does happen. Let's get to our right engine as well. Yeah, probably the one issue I have with the sound set is that the sound set for the right engine does not seem to be as loud as the left engine. It's a quirky thing that I noticed. But again, is it a game breaker? Absolutely not. But still, it is one of those little things that I did notice. All right, now we'll continue. Now we've checked our mags, we've done our engine run up. We're going to now taxi down and we'll do our departure here. This aircraft is just so this is something that if you're into glass cockpit and that kind of stuff, this is probably straight up not going to be an aircraft for you. But at the same time, if you're wanting to challenge yourself into with a different type of aircraft, this is going to be something that you're going to want to do, and you've got to be careful of not oversteering with that differential throttle there. All right, now we want to get ourselves lined up. Now, as we do that, we're going to go almost nosed over as I put the brakes on there. Now, before takeoff, we're going to put our tail skid lock in place, so we hopefully line this up on the runway. All right, now we're going to do our flaps to takeoff, which is 2 notches of flaps. And the flaps on this aircraft are really fascinating because they're actually between the main gear location. So, all right, now with that set, okay, we are now set for takeoff. All right. Pushing throttles forwards. Tendency to go to the right, just like she does in the real aircraft does. Straight up onto her tail. Okay. And just lifting to sky. Alright, cleaning up those flaps. We'll go through 100 knots. And those gear, the gear coming up there, so just power back here while the gear's coming up, because the gear does not come up quickly. As I said, this is hand wound sort of system here. So the gear does not come up quickly. So you got to watch your speed on your climb out so you don't overspeed that gear. Now, I'll see if I can get us out to the external view to see while that comes out. So let me get this aircraft trimmed out into a gentle climbing turn there, and let's go and have a quick look and see that gear coming up. So just a quick look here. Yeah, we've got the engine heat sort of coming out of those engines there, and you can see that gear ever so slowly inching and being retracted. So it's something that, as I said, it's a nice touch that the developers actually sort of paid attention to things like that, of how long it takes to do stuff. So I really like the fact that the gear does take that long to retract, and it makes you more aware of what's going on with your aircraft, especially if you want to fly it like you actually want to fly the real aircraft, like as the real aircraft flew. All right, let's jump back into the cockpit as we let that gear come up. So now with the gear fully retracted, what's really interesting is that even with low power settings, the aircraft really does, like as soon as it really models that drag coefficient of the undercarriage here. Like I'm on less than half power now, and already passing through 150 knots, like with that gear fully retracted now. So of course, as a racing aircraft, let's test some of that speed. Now, best performance height is going to be about 10,000 feet. So we're going to start our climb here, and the speed of the aircraft was 300. It was about 300 knots. 300 miles per hour. So to about 200, over 200 knots was the marketed speed for this aircraft. Now, the aircraft, as I was sort of talking about during our walk around, is the aircraft was very much designed as a prestige product, with the intention to want to take back a bit of England's glory, and sort of reclaim some of their fame in terms of aviation. So it was designed very much as a prestige product. Now, DeHavilland were very well aware that the cost of manufacture and the cost of development was going to not be cheap, but they still wanted to make sure that somebody was able to enter these aircraft into the races, into the McRobertson air race. So as a result, they sold this aircraft for the princely sum of £5,000, knowing that the manufacturing cost of each aircraft was going to be in excess of £10,000. So they were fully comfortable and fully okay with selling the aircraft literally at a 50% loss. but they wanted to make sure that they wanted to do it for national prestige, but also for the technological innovation and technological gains that the company would learn from as part of the process of actually making sure of actually learning to build the kind of monocoque design and high speed monocoque design that this aircraft would embody. And there was becoming a common sight across from aircraft coming out of the United States. So learning these new technologies, they prioritised that, were happy to sell it at lost and put it, and essentially the McRobertson Air Race was essentially a giant test situation for this aircraft and for this new technology. But despite the fact that American aircraft were coming out with a stressed metal and an all-metal construction, this aircraft is, as I said before, primarily of wood, with minimal amounts of metal being used throughout the aircraft, essentially only being on the trailing edge of the ailerons, the engine and the undercarriage, obviously, but bare minimum use of metal was used throughout the aircraft. Primarily focusing on wooden construction, leveraging heavily off naval construction techniques to get the most, because there were concerns about whether or not the aircraft was going to be able to handle the stresses of flight, given some of the performance limit or performance being expected of this aircraft and being required of this aircraft. There were concerns that the wooden construction would not be able to hold up to that. But those fears were definitely allayed through the use of various methods of naval construction to bring the aircraft to life, resulting in a all wooden control surfaces and main fuselage construction. Now we're heading up to 10,000 feet here. We can start leaning out our mixture. Start bringing that down. Yeah, the engine's pitch changing there. Okay, coming up to 10,000 feet. Now, what was interesting with the aircraft as well is that with down here the flame traps. So the flame traps have also been modelled with this as well. So the flame traps essentially redirect some of the engine exhaust into the engine to sort of allow it to run hotter. But what that did though is that essentially it meant that the aircraft was more fuel efficient, but you did suffer an RPM and speed loss, performance loss of that. So if you leave these flame traps open, so you'll be in the rear position here, then you'll get the max performance of the aircraft. If you push them forward and close them, then you will get max fuel efficiency out of the aircraft. So we're just coming up on 10,000 feet here. I just love this aircraft. It's just so... I just love how, the challenge of flying, this kind of flying is just so good. Like, absolutely love this. I really, really do. It might be a very basic cockpit and very basic textures, but the feeling of the aircraft doing this is just so much fun. Just subtly just trimming that air there. Alright, now that we're up here at altitude, let's have a look at the aircraft model again while in flight. Alright, as we're here now crossing the British countryside, you can just see those beautiful lines, those just clean Spartan racing lines of the Comet. And as I said, I just think it's an incredibly beautiful aeroplane, definitely up there with the Spitfire. And it just really goes to show some of the technological innovations that are in here in this aircraft. And I just love how the team and the developer Shepper has just really captured the challenges of flying a 1930s racing aircraft, with the basic controls, and actually you have to fly the aeroplane. She can trim out quite well, but at the same time, because your CO center of gravity will change as you burn fuel, that trim, you will still need to trim it fairly constantly to be able to get a stable flight pattern on this aircraft. And of course, not only with those beautiful lines, it also brings us that challenge of flying it and handling the twin engines, especially with the tail wheel sort of assembly and flying a tail wheel, especially landing and taking off tail wheel aircraft. This is just an absolutely wonderful rendition of this aircraft, and I'm so glad the developers come through with this one. I'm really looking forward to see what else they do. Alright, well, now that we've seen our cruise cruise here, and let's go and have a look and check out the speed and see if we manage to get to our racing speed while flying up here. And then we'll come in and do our try our landing with that extraordinarily long landing gear extension time. Alright, and coming through here, yep, there we are. So we are 200 knots while flying in our cruise at about 9,000 feet, so a little bit lower than our optimal cruising altitude. So it definitely does do the performance, so there you go. Alright, so what we'll do now is we're going to start our descent, and this is the aircraft, because she's so fast, she doesn't slow down very easily either. So it's going to be an interesting and challenge to fly, and the flaps, as I said, are actually located between the between the engine nacelles on the belly of the aircraft. There are 4 stages of flaps, stage 2 for takeoff, stage 4 for landing, and they are interesting with that and how they work, because they also not only do they work as flaps, they also essentially work as air brakes as well. So you've got to be careful when you extend those and how much power and airspeed you lose on approach. But speaking of, let's head towards Popham and come in for our landing and see how we go. Landing this tail dragger. So several challenges with the Comet. So one is the fact that as a racer aircraft, she does like to go fast. So that means trying to slow down to the speed that you need for gear extension and stuff like that can be really challenging. Interesting enough, that giant red light is an indicator that your throttle is below 10% and that you do not have the gear fully extended. So I'm just sort of like bringing us down below 110 knots so I can extend the gear and extend first stage flaps. Alright, so gear starting to extend, first flaps down. Okay, and the second problem that we have with this aircraft is visibility. Visibility is somewhat challenging with this aircraft. So if you're flying in an unfamiliar area, it's one of the things that's both wonderful and also reminds you of how lucky we are with modern technology, of looking around and going, where is my aerodrome? I know it should be around here somewhere, but where? So this is going to be fun. Like I said, I know I'm in the area, hence why, and because I know how long the gear takes to extend, that's why I'm sort of extending the gear now. So I know it should be around here somewhere. I may have to cheat and use a bit of 21st century sort of electronic flight bag technology potentially to be able to find where I am. Interestingly enough, though, it actually happened to several of the races in the McRobertson air race. They actually got lost, or at least were temporarily unsure of their position, and sort of ended up going to other airfields. Interestingly enough, the aircraft that came second in the race overall, which was a just careful I don't overspeed the gear too much there. The aircraft that came second was a Douglas DC-2 entered by KLM, and they actually diverted to ended up landing at Albury. And it was funny because how they knew they were at Albury was because the local telegraph postmaster actually sort of got their somehow became aware of their difficulties and actually went to the power station and actually sent Morse code via the street lights in order to actually sort of let them know that they were at Albury. Then they got the locals to actually sort of line the runway with vehicles to illuminate it so they could actually land. And the Dutch, the KLM and Dutch were so grateful for their efforts there that they actually ended up awarding making a significant donation to the local hospital and a children's charity, as well as bestowing upon the mayor of Albury a Dutch royal title. So that was it's one of those random pieces of interesting history that came out of the Robertson air race. Anyway, alright, so that's our airfield, that's Popham. We're going to be coming in to land at. Now, I should probably check my winds, because if I remember correctly, that should be out of about 2.7. So, essentially, we're flying our upwind at the moment. So, we're going to turn crosswind. Downwind here, about 1,500 feet, because our gear is still extending. And of course, as I said, it's quite a challenge to come in and land this aircraft because of the lack of visibility, and you essentially have to fly with power on all the way down. So you have to touch the main. You don't aim for a 3-point landing with this aircraft. You absolutely come down with your main gear first. Well, that's the intention, is to come down with the main gear first, and then to come down with let the tail wheel sink in, sink and land once you lose lift. Okay. May need to extend this downwind, because that gear, of course, is still coming down. So we can have a look. Gear coming down there, and you can just see the the flaps sort of starting, because I've got takeoff flaps set, so you can sort of see how they're just sort of breaking that bottom of the airframe there as while they're extended there, and they do come down quite significantly further. Alright. Gear still coming down, so I'm going to be extending this downwind. We're looking about 45 knots on our over the fence speed, so we're coming down, there we go. Gear fully down, so now I can execute my turn. Hopefully haven't lost sight of the runway. There we go, there it is. As I said, this is going to be quite challenging, given that we've got the high nose there, so probably a little low. This is one of the things I love about this airplane, is that it's so challenging to do exactly what we're doing here. Okay, flaps out. Okay. Now the challenge of actually having an extended downwind like this is that it's a lot more difficult for me to keep the runway in sight while coming in to land, because if I'm closer to the runway, I can keep the pilot operating handbook, which by the way is very much worth the read. The team did a great job on actually sort of making it look and feel like an actual documentation. I have trouble keeping the runway in sight because of the fact that I'm now on a long lineup. So I'm sort of having to zigzag a little bit. Okay, full flaps. Okay, I'm coming in way too fast. But that final stage of flaps does essentially act as a fairly large air brake. No, I am far too fast for this. Okay, powering up, going around. I should probably follow the correct traffic pattern now with the left circuit here. This just shows that the aircraft, you've got to think so far ahead with an aircraft like this. You really, really do. Like, it's just, you don't just sort of just press the gear button and it's down 10 seconds later. It's like, no, those like several minutes before that gear is all the way down. I love the challenges of this aircraft, an aircraft of its ilk and its era. Much like the Boeing 247, which, by the way, was the other aircraft that the DH-88 was competing against and finished third in the McRobertson Air Race, was a Boeing 247D, which, of course, there is a wonderful replication, a rendition of that aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, thanks to Wing 42. Okay. Okay, let's bring the power back. Now a little bit better vision of the field this time. Still a little fast. Nope. Alrighty, so fourth time is the charm, I think, is going to be the way for this one. Alright, coming in. Bring back the power. Keep that runway in sight. Oops, a daisy. Alright. Now, let the tail fall, keeping full stick back while tapping the brakes. Right. Successful! Right, so it is possible to successfully land this aircraft. Oh, jeez. And, as I said, I'm loving the fact that the aircraft challenges you like that with its performance, and the fact that it is a challenging aircraft to fly. It is an aircraft that really does require you to pay attention. Now, of course, now that I'm on the ground, I can now unlock the tail skid to give us a bit more directional control. Because you need to have that. I didn't mention that as part of my landing, but you do have to make sure that as part of your landing checklist that you've got your tail skid is locked to help you maintain that sort of runway line while you're decelerating once the tail skid comes back down. All right, let's taxi down here at Popham as park up, and let's give our final thoughts on the Comet for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Alrighty, so final thoughts on the DeHavilland DH.88 Comet for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is a fantastic add-on, particularly for freeware. It is feature complete. It gives the feeling of actually flying one of these pioneering racing aircraft back in the golden age of air racing. When it gives you that feeling of being on a cutting edge of, really fundamentally cutting edge of technology at the time, and that barnstorming sort of feeling of this golden era of aviation. Visually, the aircraft externally is absolutely stunning. Incredibly great work done by the team, by the developer and the team there. Absolutely amazing. Cannot fault the exterior. Interior would be a little bit nice. Potentially could be a bit nicer and could do a bit more work at some point. But overall, like, it's still not bad. It's still not bad. It's still functional. It still looks the part. Maybe a bit too clean. But again, these aircraft, when they flew in the races, were literally brand new, fresh off the factory floor, 6 weeks from design to production and racing. So there's an incredible, it's an incredible story of this aircraft, and I think that this add-on really captures that story that goes with it. So yeah, and considering that this is a freeware development as well, absolutely amazing. A huge shout out, a huge hats off to the developer. Like, just such an incredible work. I cannot wait to see what improvements and developments that you add into this in the future. So folks, if you're into that sort of 1930s era of aviation, particularly some of the challenges that go with it, such as, compass and map bearing and none of this GPS autopilot stuff. This is an aircraft that I really highly recommend you get. You literally, and you can't go wrong with the price tag. You really can't. So yeah, for me, definite recommend, get this in your hangar. You will not be disappointed. Alright folks, well that does round out this review video for a freeware release of the DeHavilland DH.88 Comet for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget as always to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by following me on Facebook and on Twitter and on Twitch. Just search NovaWing24. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.